You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks and Zach Bechtold. We hope you enjoy this week's show, and you can find out more about us by going online at beardedtheologians.com, where you can pick up a few t-shirts, listen to a few old episodes, and find ways that you can connect with us. Thank you for listening. You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the podcast, as we are in the threshold of the Tridennium of Holy Week, we thought it would be a good opportunity for us to talk about Easter. So Zach, what are some thoughts that you have about Easter?
So many. No, Easter's always fun. Easter's always stressful for the clergy type folks and church staff because there's just a lot going on. There's a lot that happens before Easter during Holy Week. I mean, between Palm Sunday and Easter morning, we have 5 services here. Then another 3 on Easter morning, which is out of the ordinary. We just have 1 typically on Sundays. So there's a lot that goes into it. And I think what I'm finding, you and I kind of were talking about it before we hit record of what are we going to say on Easter, which is a weird question. We're going to say the thing we always say, that Christ is risen, that hope is once again upon us, right? Right? We're going to sing the songs and do the things. But I am struck this year reminding myself, I think especially after Christmas Eve and how that went for me and some revelations I had there, some growing edges I had there of there's not a lot I have to say. When I sit down and finish up this sermon for Easter, it'll likely be the shortest sermon I have for the year because the music tells the story, the scriptures tell the story, as any Sunday, the full worship service tells the story. But I'm going to lean into that a little bit more this year, not so that I don't preach so much, but so that I give breath to let everything else breathe, give space for everything else in the service to breathe and work together a little bit better because it's a full service, more so than a regular Sunday. And so that's kind of what I'm leaning into is how do I give space for Easter to breathe and live in a way that isn't reliant on the words that I say. What about you?
As I've been thinking about Easter this year, one of the things I think I did a little differently for me was I started way earlier than I ever have. And some of it was because I just feel like there's this heaviness for Easter in a way that we haven't experienced ever. At least what I'm feeling. I mean, I don't know about you, but I know that I'm feeling that. And leaning into the idea, like I'm actually like flipping my script in a little bit in a way that I've never done before. And I'm preaching from Isaiah, the Isaiah lectionary text, and the idea of hope, and that God will make all things new. And moving from, this space of, I got asked a bazillion times yesterday from men's lunch to, cleaning up and getting things ready from our stations across, getting ready for tonight. People are like, are you ready for Easter? It's like, I gotta have Good Friday first. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, as I'm sitting here getting ready for Good Friday, I think of why we need that, why we need that silence of Holy Saturday, of just taking a deep breath, getting ready for what is to come. Mm-hmm. And like you, I have 3 services on Sunday. And I think for me, I really lean into that reading, approaching the tomb. And I always have a woman. I start our Easter services starting with that reading, a woman reading that reading, just for the brevity of what the experience really was, and not just this like, hey, people showed up to the, and the tomb was empty and all things broke loose. I think there's a sense of hope in the story. And I don't know about you, but if you've ever read through the whole Gospel of Luke, and I know it sounds crazy that I'm actually like literally like talking like biblically here, because it's not usually something we do unless we actually are talking about specific scripture. I literally was reading through the Easter Luke story, and so you have the experience at the tomb, and then later that day you have this Emmaus experience of
Hmm.
them sitting in a meal. Like all this is one
Hmm.
day, and like we play
Right.
this off as like this like long
Right.
like couple of days kind of thing, and I always
Hmm.
had that in my head
Hmm.
until I was reading that, and I was like, oh wow, like this all happened in one day.
Hmm.
And I can only imagine what it would be like to the disciples, those two disciples that were with Jesus on the Emmaus Road and sitting down for a meal for them.
Hmm.
And then like having this experience and then like running back to the
Right.
disciples and saying, I see dead people.
Right.
And
Right.
like, you know,
Yeah.
and then Peter goes, mustard on the beat. Sorry, I had to
Well,
do that.
and that's the thing about Easter, right? We have the same, like Advent, we have the same set of stories we tell during this holy season, and Easter being the culmination of that, right? The lead up's often different, but Easter's the same. We're telling the story of the empty tomb. And this year we're doing Mark. We've been journeying all of Lent through the Gospel of Mark, and this is probably the first year that I've preached Easter out of Mark's gospel because Mark's not a
Go on the
storyteller. We
preaching.
know that, right? Like it's just kind of there. But also in kind of the same vein as Luke, I would argue that the Emmaus story is often an overlooked Easter story, right? Because yeah, it feels like it's 2 or 3 days a week down the road, same day, right?
Yeah.
Like the
Like,
women come from the tomb and they're like, "Hey, it's empty," and then the two disciples leave.
yeah.
Right? Like
Like,
immediately.
and what I love about this, and I think we forget this when we're preaching or even leading worship, is that one, let the scripture tell the story,
Hmm.
and do it in a way like have somebody to read the story in a way
Yeah.
that would give life to the story
Right.
and allow it to speak for itself. Like I said, I don't remember when I started doing this, but I know I was told in seminary that a woman should read the Easter text regardless, and so I've always started my service with that text.
Hmm.
Now, for the sunrise service, it's going to be a little different, but we're doing a brunch style church, and I've included the Emmaus story in the conversation. Like, we're going to talk
Hmm.
about the Emmaus story in our brunch church sunrise service. And I'm excited about that. But, like, there is a sense of hope for Easter in a way that I'm excited for, but I'm also like, I'm scared as hell of what I'm going to say, what's going to happen. We have a baptism.
Hmm.
We're doing a remember your baptism part of our service. And like, it's going to be this great time. And like, everybody's excited as I've been talking about this with our leadership team and things like that. But for me, it's not that Easter is the Super Bowl.
Right.
Like, I know sometimes people say that, but for me, Easter is one of those times that you're going to have probably one of your larger crowds to convey your church's mission, vision,
Hmm.
and plan, and for that to get lived out in that space. And that's what I stress over more than what's going to happen in the service. I know the music's
Hmm.
going to be great. I know the liturgists are going to hit their marks. I know that everything's going to fall into place like it's supposed to. But the thing that always worries me, and it's the thing that we kind of skirt over, is that how our church is showing how we really are on a normal, like this is who we are. And so come
Hmm.
be a part. We'd love for you to continue this story, continue with us. And to me, those other components that I think sometimes get overlooked are things that I'm stressing over more than what's going to be said on Sunday.
Right. Well, and it's you and I both have held the working belief that tell the story, right? Like you don't Christmas, Easter, just tell the story, right? And how that leans into who we are as people who follow Jesus. And that's what I like about I, I've said it a lot of this podcast. Mark's not my favorite gospel,
I
because
know,
he's not a storyteller.
and
But
I'm really
no, no, no.
excited about how
I'm
you're using
I,
it this year.
right, and I've been excited about it. It's been fun to unpack it. And what I love about Easter Sunday, if you stop where Mark stops and you don't go with the second ending, oh my gosh, right? Like
Yeah.
it's great. And our whole Lenten season's about, been about the beginner's guide to the good news of how, if it's our first Lent or our 100th Lent, how are we continuing to live out the good news of Jesus Christ? And what better way than to stop at Mark's original ending where it just stops? It's open ended for what happens next and how we respond to that. And we go right in. Our Easter to Pentecost series is living out the third day, and taking everybody's resurrection stories and experience of resurrection and telling those, and then telling ours. It's gonna be a blast.
Which is funny
Uh,
because I'm going in a way different
right.
direction of looking at Revelation and
Sure.
saying, how do we deal with the idea of prophecy in the midst of today? Like,
Yeah.
and I'm going to unpack a whole bunch of other things too,
Mhm.
but like, I love how like you're willing to stop at 8, Mark 16:8. I have said on this podcast a bazillion times that Mark is my favorite gospel, and it's because of that right there.
Mhm.
For they left because they were afraid. And then
Yeah.
like I always just imagine like this like just
It just
fade.
fades to black, right? Yeah. No, but there's something so relevant in that for Easter that we're
Oh
not
yeah.
telling the entire year's story, right? Like e even for anybody who comes to church on Easter, whether it's you're in church every Sunday or your Christmas Easter, or you just happen to come in and join us because the doors were open, uh, you're getting a story that fits you and right where you are in your life. And that's the good news, right? Doesn't matter where you are, doesn't matter how many times you've been in. The good news of Christ is the love and grace that we experience, and how we go and then share that. It's huge.
And I think like there's a reason why I love using Mark, and I use it about every second or third year,
Hmm.
just depending on how I feel and where I'm at in the lectionary. Because I'm about 50-50 for the lectionary. And so like it depends on the lectionary
Hmm.
year, you know. But I know that for me, when I end with Mark, it's we are the continuance of that story.
Yeah.
And we have to live that out in our daily lives. Just like this year, since I'm using Isaiah, I have found myself looking at Isaiah in a way of saying they were people who the world was seeming in shambles, things weren't going well, and they needed to hear this message of hope so that they can live into the new beginnings that they were anticipating to come. Just
Hmm.
like the disciples were sitting around, I can only imagine what it would be like to have the women come back to them and say, "Hey, the tomb, you know, he's gone." Like,
Hmm.
and I can only imagine what they thought, because Lord knows that they weren't thinking about the things that He already told them. Like, you know, Jesus was really clear on what was going to happen. It's just and I say we, like I think of we as that. Yeah, I could see myself being a disciple of
Hmm.
do. Oh, these are really cool. I'm helping this guy out. We're doing great things. We're helping people, and like not hear the message that Jesus was bringing the entire time, that this was going to
Hmm.
happen, and that and I think when we think of Easter, for me, as we're kind of getting there, I think I need to hear hope more than anything for me.
Hmm.
Just with all that's going on, and and just things the way that they feel, there, as I've read through and have prepared, the idea of hope is key. And so
Hmm.
yes, I'm looking at Mon again, and just and and just reminding myself of why we need the hope.
Hmm.
Um, so so
Well, and
yeah.
I think that's what it is, right? Like that's our messages, and for all of these high holy seasons is hope. And in the world we live in today, we could use a hell of a lot more hope.
And I think that's why like I love the hymn "Morning Has Broken,"
Hmm.
because I feel like that we need that to start our day, like in this, especially of Easter.
Hmm.
um there's just something special about it that just hits my soul, you
Right.
know. um and so yeah, I'm looking forward to Easter. I know there's a lot of emotion, and I think one of the things that kind of gets overlooked is that the emotion of it is what drains us more than anything. It's not the
Hmm.
services. It's the fact
Hmm.
that if we're doing it right and we're putting the right emotion into it, and feel into it,
Hmm.
then yeah, like that Easter nap is like the best nap the whole year.
Hmm.
Um, and so I think it's something that, um, as we lean into hope, as we lean into the message of new beginnings, as we lean into the fact that, hey, the tomb was empty,
Hmm.
and just there's some really coolness in there. I think it leans us into, you know, some excitement of what is to come.
Hmm. Absolutely.
So Zach, in this last week, where have you seen God at work?
All over the place, of course, but in some really specific areas that I am not yet ready to talk about, purely because of the emotional wear and tear of this week. So I'm just going to leave it at that. What about you?
Um, I love putting together the things.
Hmm.
I obsessed on Tuesday getting the Stations of the Cross set up in the sanctuary, literally like tear down set up, all the things, like literally like making sure it looked
Hmm.
great. Obsessing over tonight, getting ready for Good Friday, thinking about what that's going to look like, thinking about the nuts and like all the moving
Hmm.
parts that go into that. Going to do a few things a little different this year to see if this will work, hoping that nobody falls like as we move the screens in front of the altar and move the black out the choir towards the end of the service. And
Hmm.
I have in my head what the last seven words are going to look like in my head. And so where I've seen God at work is just the conversations that I've had on Wednesday um at stations. I set out, we have like this little round desk thing that I stood at most of the day and just engaged people as they were coming out of the stations. And it was powerful for me. Just to hear people's experiences, the people, how people felt, the challenge, the like the growing edges that it presented for some, and just even people who went through it last year, and to go through it again this year, like they were just like wow, they were just amazed. And so I think seeing God working through that experience was just so cool, and being a part of that in a way where literally all I did was set things up and I just stood outside and hung out and folded bulletins. I have the paper cuts to show that. Um, but that to me was a powerful experience.
Hmm. Love that.
So we want to thank our listeners for listening, and we hope you have a good Easter, and have a meaningful Good Friday. I don't know how to say have a good Friday.
Have a good
Begins
Friday.
have a good Friday, um, and may your Holy Saturday be sacred. Um, but I would thank our listeners for listening. You can go on our website at beardedtheologians.com, pick up all sorts of great things, as well as pick up some items and gifts for friends and family throughout these really crazy seasons of graduations, um, pastoral moves, Father's Day, Mother's Day. There's a couple other days I know I'm missing that are really weird days, but it's a good thing to buy for somebody. But you can also look at all of our past content as well. I mean, it's crazy to think, Zach, that we've been doing this for almost
Hmm.
9.5 years.
Yep.
I mean, we're getting closer to 10 as we speak. And so we are thankful for our listeners. And so just continue to like us and share us through all your spaces. And if you got questions, feel free to ask. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
Guys, and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.